Hi students, welcome to lesson 42, Illiteracy and Disparities in Indian Education. Introduction. According to the UNESCO, literacy is the ability to identify, understand, interpret, create, communicate and compute using printed and written materials associated with varying contexts. Literacy involves a continuum of learning in enabling individuals to achieve their goals, to develop their knowledge and potential, and to participate fully in their community and wider society. One who can, with understanding, both read and write a short, simple statement in his everyday life is literate according to UNESCO. In consensus with this definition, the Census Commission of India 1992 put forth these conditions. Firstly, the person should be able to read and write any Indian language. Secondly, he or she should also understand such language. Thirdly, formal education is not a necessary condition. The literacy rate of India in 2020 is 77.7%. As per UNESCO, India will achieve universal literacy by 2060. Objectives. After completion of this lesson, you will be able to explain the causes and consequences of illiteracy and disparities in Indian education. You will be able to describe the policy measures to alleviate illiteracy. Illiteracy and Indian disparities in education. For many decades, growth with equity and social justice has remained on the development agenda of developing countries. Illiteracy and varied factors of socio-economic deprivations have resulted in the perpetuation of disparities in social and economic development. Historically, education was used as a potent instrument for exclusion of certain population groups and regions from participation in the development process. In India, we witnessed gross disparities in access, completion and quality of education. Economic factors, linguistic background, gender, ethnicity and place of birth all have impact on the educational experience children have in India. These in turn contribute to disparities in knowledge in India's society. According to Philip H. Coombs, renowned educator, the access to educational facilities is distributed unequally. Educational disparities is seen in the fields of rural, urban, male and female, disparities among different regions and between different castes and ethnic groups. The rural people have poor access to education facilities, particularly to secondary and post-secondary education. Usually, all the tertiary or higher educational institutions are found to be situated in semi-urban and urban areas, thus depriving the rural area children of their right to tertiary education in many developing countries. Gender disparities, that is, differences between males and females, is critical disparity in educational attainment. In traditional societies, the education of girl children is generally restricted. Among economically weaker families, people generally prefer to spend on the education of the male child rather than educating the female child. The gender parity index, which is defined as female enrollment divided by male enrollment ratios, is usually low in developing countries of Asia. Girls in India continue to have lower rates of educational completion. One of the major areas of concern is safety. Thus, the Global Education Monitoring Report 2020 highlights that in Delhi, young women were willing to enroll in a college of lower quality if it was accessible by a safer route. States have taken steps to address girls' education, but many of these do not address systemic causes of the lower performance of the girls' poor teacher capacity, inadequate quality of schools, or the hidden curricula of classrooms, focusing more on familial factors. This is not to say that there are no victories in doing so. Thus, as the report highlights, in Bihar, girls were provided with bicycles to facilitate access to secondary school, which resulted in 32% increase in their enrollment and a 12% increase in the number of those who passed the secondary school certificate examination. Disparities observed in education development in terms of the disparities between the nations and within a nation, between the regions. Around the globe, the educational disparities are observed between Europe, Asia and USA. Literacy also varies between the nations in Asian countries. In the same country, literacy varies from one region to other. For instance, in India, the literacy rate and educational development is high among southern region states such as Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Telugu states of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh as compared to other states of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. In India, the literacy and level of education among the marginalized, including Divyangjan, is lower compared to other group of population. The Education Commission Report 1964-1966 of Government of India had envisaged that one of the important social objectives of education is to equalize educational opportunity, enabling the backward or underprivileged classes and individuals to use education as a lever for improvement of their condition. Various factors such as educational governance, people's participation, expenditure on education, etc. influence the regional educational disparities. Let us discuss the other factors which impact educational disparities. Caste and class factors. India's Dalit children experience inequality in access, frequently needing to walk longer distances to main village school, which may be segregated by caste and quality, often studying in schools with higher percentage of single teacher and schools with poor infrastructure. They also often face discrimination within communities, school, classrooms, including in the midday meal. In India, the median number of years of education girls from the poorest families receive is 0 compared to 9.1 years for girls from the richest families. Linguistic exclusion. Despite legal protections to mother tongue education, there has been a gradual decline in the number of languages used as medium of instruction. Less dominant languages have been neglected, contributing the sense of alienation of tribal learners. In tribal areas, if English or even if the state language is spoken, it is challenging for the tribal children since they may understand only their tribal language. Geographical factors. According to UNESCO's Global Education Monitoring Report 2020, India has made notable efforts to expand its school network since 2009 Right to Education Act, which required primary schools to be located no more than 1 kilometer from a child's home. This has brought large numbers of hitherto out of school children into school, particularly in scarcely populated regions of the country. However, this has increased the number of small schools with inadequate infrastructure, resulting in an ongoing process of rationalizing education resource distribution, which has affected school distance for secondary and higher education, particularly for girls and learners with disabilities. Evidence shows that increased distance due to school closure has led to a rise in dropouts, particularly among girls. Divyangjan or persons who are differently abled. The National Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 defines inclusive education as a system of education wherein students with and without disability learn together, and the system of teaching and learning is suitably adapted to meet the learning needs of different types of students with disabilities. Most states have, however, not notified state rules under this act despite mandatory requirement to do so within 6 months. Courses for children with special needs has to be designed to develop their skills of readiness, academic competencies and sense of motivation for successful integration in regular schools. Let us now discuss the causes of educational disparity. The non-inclusive models of delivery, absence of consistent quality standards for residential schools and special schools for children with disability have created educational systems that reflect disparities. The education system is under-resourced and understaffed. Incentives and capacities to devote time and effort to provide individualized support is lacking. School level staff furthermore frequently lack capacity to implement provisions both as the result of the limited agency and absence of funds to deliver. The indifferent attitude of teachers and officials also influence the disparities in education. The absence of consistent standards of quality for all government schools creates disparities within the education system. Governance bottlenecks like procurement and other delays also delay delivery of the committed entitlements. The bottom line is the quality of education system is determined by the quality of its teachers. There is serious deficit of trained teachers and special educators, thus impacting quality and inclusive education. The shortage of skilled and trained teachers limit the capacity to deliver inclusive education. There is a shortfall of special educators. There is an insensitive attitude towards the education of the poor, marginalized and Divyangjan. Further, the inclination towards attaching greater significance to academic results over inclusion and equity agendas enhances the disparities. Let us now discuss the causes of illiteracy. Illiteracy in India is a socio-economic problem which has complex dimensions attached to it. Illiteracy in India is more or less concerned with different forms of disparities that exist in the country. There are gender and income imbalances, regional imbalances, caste and class imbalances, technological barriers which shape the literacy rates of the country. Poor households, due to the lack of skills and knowledge, involve themselves with unskilled labor for livelihoods. This reduces the focus from achieving education and deviates to earning income for survival. States that spend more on education seem to have a higher literacy rates as to the states which do not invest heavily on education. One of the primary reasons for dismal literacy rates is inadequate school facilities. The teaching staff that is employed across schools lack appropriate training. Another reason which leads to the maximum dropouts among the children is the lack of proper sanitation. The causes of illiteracy also include high rate of population growth in relation to low rate of growth in adult literacy, ineffectiveness of primary schools in enrolling and retaining students, traditional outlook of the lower class in using the services of the young children either for earning some additional money or looking after their younger siblings at home, high level of poverty, low allotment of government funds to the education sector, etc. Let us now discuss about the consequences of illiteracy. The biggest consequence of illiteracy in India is poverty. Poverty also happens to be the single biggest cause of illiteracy in India and a precursor to all other effects. The inability to attain basic nutritious and potable water are the more popularly quoted effects of poverty in India. Illiteracy in India and its effects compound together to form a burden that is passed on from generation to generation. The consequences of illiteracy are many and harmful in several respects. Illiteracy affects individuals in their daily lives and often threatening their future. This menace has a significant effect on society, both socially as well as economically. The consequences of illiteracy on individuals and society include unemployment and lower income, limited ability to obtain and understand essential information, lower quality jobs, reduced access to lifelong learning and professional development, dangerous financial position. Little value is given to education and reading within the family, and this often leads to intergenerational transmission of illiteracy, low self-esteem, which can lead to isolation. Several positions remain vacant for lack of personnel adequately trained to hold them. Literacy is an essential tool for individuals and states to be competitive in the new global knowledge economy, which is technology driven and skill driven. The GDP growth slows down with less literacy proficiency. There is also impact on the level of community involvement and civic participation. Literacy provides the basic tools necessary for achieving individual and social goals and also participate in social and political discourses. Let us now discuss some of the policy measures. Several policy measures have been initiated to address the problems of illiteracy and disparities in education. Education has been recognized as critical input for investment in human capital. Planned expenditure on education has also increased rapidly since the first 5-year plan. In 2021, rupees 99,312 crore has been allocated. Within the education sector, elementary education has been given the highest priority in terms of sub-sectoral allocations. A number of schemes launched by the central government to meet the needs of the educationally disadvantaged include Operation Blackboard in 1987, District Primary Education Program launched in 1994 as a major initiative to revitalize the primary education system and to achieve the objective of universalization of primary education. Education Guarantee Scheme and Alternative and Innovative Education, Mahila Samakhya Scheme 1988, Teacher Education, Lok Jumbish 1992-94, Shiksha Karmi Project 1987, Janshala Program, the joint program of the Government of India and 5 UN agencies, UNDP, UNICEF, UNFPA, UNESCO and ILO was started in 1998. It was a community-based primary education program aimed to make primary education more accessible and effective, especially for girls and children in deprived communities, marginalized groups, SC, ST minorities, working children and children with special needs. The National Literacy Mission NLM was set up by the Government of India on 5th May 1988 towards illiteracy alleviation. The target population group for the program was aged 15 to 35 years. The first successful literacy campaign by the NLM was in Kottayam, Kerala. The Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan or the Education for All movement, also referred to as Each One Teach One, is another important literacy program aiming at the achievement of universalization of elementary education in a time-bound manner as per the 86th Amendment Act 2002 that made free and compulsory education for children of age 6 to 14 years a fundamental right. Samagra Shiksha. The Union Budget 2018-19 proposed to treat school education holistically without segmentation from pre-nursery to class 12. Samagra Shiksha, an overarching program for the school education sector extending from preschool to class 12, has been therefore prepared with the broader goal of improving school effectiveness measured in terms of equal opportunities for schooling and equitable learning outcomes. It subsumes the three schemes of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan and teacher education. This sector-wide development program or scheme would also help harmonize the implementation mechanisms and transaction costs at all levels. With a view to enhancing enrollment, retention and attendance and simultaneously improving nutritional levels among children, the National Program of Nutritional Support to Primary Education NPNSPE was launched as a centrally sponsored scheme on 15th August 1995. In 2001, MDMS became a cooked midday meal scheme under which every child in every government and government aided primary school was to be served a prepared midday meal with a minimum content of 300 calories of energy and 8 to 12 gram protein per day for a minimum of 200 days. The scheme was further extended in 2002 to cover not only children studying in government, government aided and local body schools, but also children studying in Education Guarantee Scheme 1997 and alternative and innovative education centers. Sakshar Bharat program, formulated in 2009, goes beyond 3 R's, that is reading, writing and arithmetic, and seeks to create awareness of social disparities and a person's deprivation on the means for its amelioration and general well-being. This program is the objective of achieving 80% literacy level at national level by focusing on adult women literacy, seeking to reduce the gap between male and female literacy to not more than 10%. It has 4 broader objectives, namely imparting functional literacy and numeracy to non-literates, acquiring equivalency to formal educational system, imparting relevant skill development program, and promote a learning society by providing opportunities for continuing education. Secondary education is the most significant stage in the educational hierarchy as it prepares the students for higher education and the world of work. At present, these schemes targeted at secondary stage, that is class 9 to 12, are being implemented in the form of centrally sponsored schemes. Some of these are Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, Girls Hostel Scheme, National Scheme of Incentives to Girls for Secondary Education, Inclusive Education for Disabled at Secondary Stage, Scheme of Vocational Education, National Merit Cum Means Scholarship Scheme, Scheme for Construction and Running of Girls Hostel for students of secondary and higher secondary schools, Scholarship Schemes for minority students, National Scholarships. The Ministry of Human Resource Development (MHRD), renamed as Ministry of Education, launched Operation Digital Board in February 2019 to leverage technology in order to boost quality education in the country. ODB aims to have digital and interactive boards in every classroom, which is on the lines of Operation Blackboard, which was started in 1987 to supply the bare minimum crucial facilities to all primary schools in the country. Eklavya Model School and Rajiv Gandhi National Fellowship Scheme aim to encourage the students belonging to scheduled tribes community to pursue higher education. As per the budgetary allocations of 2021-22 budget, Union government would include 100 government-run Sainik schools to be managed under the public-private partnership program and open around 750 Eklavya schools across India. To facilitate digital literacy, Digital India Program 2015 was launched. It brings together many existing schemes by restructuring and refocusing them and then implementing them in a synchronized manner. Pradhan Mantri Gramin Digital Saksharta Abhiyan was initiated under Digital India Program to cover 6 crore households in rural areas to make them digitally literate. It is one of the largest initiatives of the country with the target of making citizens digitally literate. National Education Policy 2020 aims at making India a global knowledge superpower by introducing several changes from school to college level in the Indian education system. The new policy seeks rectification of poor literacy and numeracy outcomes associated with primary schools, reduction in dropout levels in middle and secondary schools, and adoption of multidisciplinary approach in higher education system. The principles of NEP are flexibility, no hard separations between subjects, curricular and extracurricular activities, multidisciplinary education, conceptual understanding, critical thinking, ethical values, teachers as the heart of the learning process, and strong public education system. Let us now discuss what is the way forward. The manifestations and causes of illiteracy and disparities in education system in India are known and understood. To ensure equity in education and address the disparities in education, there is a need to make concrete changes in legislative provisions, steps towards sensitization and training of teachers, actions to enhance government implementation, monitoring and enforcement capacities, and enhanced financing to education. There is an urgent need to increase investment in public schools. Due to lack of funds, the government schools are unable to invest in providing basic facilities to children. Lack of functioning toilets, hand washing area and drinking water compels children, especially girl children, to drop out of the school. On the other hand, private schools with high-end facilities charge exorbitant fees, making it impossible for those from the marginalized communities to access services. Increasing government expenditure in public schools will make them more accessible. Teacher training is the foundation of effective and efficient education system. The education system cannot be enhanced without trained and educated teachers. Lack of qualified teachers in both public and private schools impact learning outcomes of children. There is a need for drastic changes to ensure that schools hire qualified teachers, availability of qualified teachers, and opportunities for individuals to be trained as teachers. Inclusive education is a critical step to address the disparities in Indian education. The Right to Education Act 2009 has resulted in increased enrollment of children in schools, but the Act is applicable for children between 6 to 14 years of age. Children, especially girl children, who drop out of school after 14 years of age find it almost impossible to continue their education. The purview of the Act must be increased to make education accessible to every individual. Vocational and professional training is vital for skill development, which again is interconnected with several other factors. Often school education alone does not provide the skills required to enter the workforce. The current system of rote learning, that is, memorization of information based on repetition without practical training, affects the quality of education and fails to develop employable skill sets. Thus, vocational training is important to fill this gap. Carpentry, plumbing, stitching and nursing are some of the skills which can help individuals seek fulfilling employment. Changing social norms and improving attitude towards literacy and education is extremely important. Social norms, values and attitudes play a massive role in determining the growth of a country. Regressive social norms and narrow-mindedness result in girls dropping out of schools or children not being sent to school at all, and this creates a vicious cycle of illiteracy and patriarchal norms for even future generations. Let us now summarize this lesson. The international community is focusing on 2030 with Sustainable Development Goals and has aimed to ensure inclusive and quality education for all and promote lifelong learning within its goals of 4th Sustainable Development Goal. The social problem of illiteracy leads to a vicious circle of socio-economic challenges. Addressing the disparities in education can also facilitate in reducing illiteracy. In a globalized world, ensuring digital literacy is equally significant for the competitive edge, good governance and socio-economic development. In a nutshell, inclusive education is the only way forward for value-based skill education. Ensuring better community participation as a significant stakeholder will take the levels of literacy in India to greater heights.